Introduction. Choose one of these characters. The Gypsy. Skills: brawling, charms, folklore, roguery. Profile: fleeing persecution in the old world, you have come to the colonies of the new world to carve a new life of fame and fortune. Life points: 10. Possessions: magic amulet. Money: 10 doubloons. Choose. The Adventurer. Skills: folklore, roguery, seafaring, swordplay. Profile: you have explored haunted castles, ruined cities, dank crypts, and desolate forests in your constant search for gold and glory. Now try your luck on the high seas. Life points: 10. Possessions: sword. Money: 10 doubloons. Choose. The Buccaneer. Skills: cunning, marksmanship, seafaring, swordplay. Profile: you're a clever and resourceful pirate, loyal to your comrades and a deadly foe to anyone who crosses you. Life points: 10. Possessions: pistol, sword. Money: 10 doubloons. Choose one of these. The Changeling. Skills: agility, cunning, spells, wilderness lore. Profile: your origins are shrouded in mystery. A misfit in your own homeland, you wander far and wide in search of the truth. Life points: 10. Possessions: magic wand. Money: 10 doubloons. The Gypsy. Skills: brawling, charms, folklore, roguery. Profile: fleeing persecution in the old world, you have come to the colonies of the new world to carve a new life of fame and fortune. Life points: 10. Possessions: magic amulet. Money: 10 doubloons. The Mariner. Skills: agility, seafaring, streetwise, wilderness lore. Profile: born on the deck of a ship and raised with the salt breeze in your face, you have been toughened by the experience of 100 ports and desert islands. No one can match your knowledge of the 7 seas. Life points: 10. Money: 10 doubloons. Choose one of these characters. The Swashbuckler. Skills: agility, cunning, streetwise, swordplay. Profile: with your dashing good looks, gallant wit, aristocratic manners, and flair for stylish daring-do, you're a hero to your friends and a real pain in the neck to your enemies. Life points: 10. Possessions: sword. Money: 10 doubloons. Choose. The Warlock. Skills: charms, marksmanship, spells, streetwise. Profile: your scholarly appearance disguises the fact that you are one of the most powerful opponents a pirate captain could ever fear to face. Life points: 10. Possessions: magic amulet, pistol, magic wand. Money: 10 doubloons. Choose one of these characters. The Buccaneer. Skills: cunning, marksmanship, seafaring, swordplay. Profile: you're a clever and resourceful pirate, loyal to your comrades and a deadly foe to anyone who crosses. You have chosen to play as the Buccaneer. You can begin the adventure at the prologue or skip directly to the adventure. Prologue. Pirates. The roar of cannon fire thunders across the waves as the word leaves the captain's lips. Hurtling out of the billowing plumes of smoke come a barrage of iron shells. Each is larger than a man's fist and strikes with a force that splinters the oak beams of your ship and shatters men's skulls like eggs. The mainmast takes a direct hit and topples, crushing the sailors standing under it. A grappling hook latches onto the rail. The pirates are getting ready to board you. Rushing to the side, you see their sinister vessel drawing alongside, black sails flapping in the breeze like a carrion bird's wings. Her prow has the face of a medieval gargoyle. You read the name painted on her bows, the Beldame. But there is no look of beauty about her, nor hint of mercy on the faces of the eager brigands lining her rail. A crewman standing beside you utters a groan of fear. It's Scarvench's ship. Who's he, you ask, having to shout over the din of cannon shots and the pirates' battle cries. He stares at you as though you are a simpleton, and then remembers that this is your first voyage to the New World. The worst man that ever lived, is his blunt reply. And then the ships come together and the pirates are upon you. You turn, and then for the first time you clap eyes on Scarvench himself. He stands astride the rail, grasping a grappling line in one hand and a pistol in the other, whipping his sea dogs into a killing frenzy with his evil laughter. His broad back and gangling limbs make him look like a massive crow. His beard is as long and lank as seaweed, and a single eye blazes beneath his bald brow. The other is covered by a leather patch. He is raising his pistol. You are rooted to the spot under his baleful stare. It can't be fear you're feeling, surely. Ah, matey, he says with a brown-toothed grin. Got to kill you again, have I? Again? You have no time to ponder this enigma. In the next instant, he fires his pistol, and your whole world goes black. You sit up with a gasp, sweat soaking your clothes. You've had that dream again, eh? You look around, memory trickling back as the dream recedes. The slow creaking of a ship's timbers, the unhurried heave of the waves, you are in the stuffy confines of the Beldame's bowels. Sailors snore fitfully around you, catching some sleep between chores. In the glimmer of an oil lamp sits old Marshy, the ship's carpenter, whittling at a stick of wood. He glances across at you, shaking his head sadly. It was 2 years ago. Don't know why you can't stop having the dreams. Dreams? Nightmares, you say, mopping the sweat away. As you do, you feel the scar across your forehead where Scarvench's bullet struck you. A finger's breadth to the right, one less tot of rum for Scarvench's breakfast that fateful morning, and your brains would have been blown out. As it is, the bullet only grazed you, leaving the visible mark on your head and the scar of hatred deep in your heart. All hands on deck. Hearing the command, you shake the other sailors awake and hurry up out of the dingy confines of the orlop deck into the blaze of daylight. Scarvench stands on the poop deck. The ox-like first mate, Porbuck, gives you a shove and growls, "You, get up in the rigging." As you climb, you glance out to sea. A small ship lies off the port bow, and the beldame is rapidly closing on her. You see a tall wooden crucifix standing amidships. She has no cannon. That is foolhardy. Go to sea on a prayer, as the adage goes, but take a keg of powder, too. You understand the reason for the other ship's lack of weaponry when you get a better view of the men lining her rail. They are all monks. Scarvench's voice goes snarling across the water. "Heave to or be blown out o' the water," he calls. "We'll be taking your treasure, holy or not." No! A carpenter's hammer goes flying through the air and strikes Scarvench's head with a crack loud enough to carry up to where you sit in the rigging. Scarvench remains as steady as a rock, his hand flashing out with startling speed to snatch the hammer out of the air as it falls. Then he turns. His face is a mask of white fury. The fact that there is a stream of blood flowing from his temple only makes him look all the more terrible. His gaze bores along the deck and finds, "Mr. Marsh, this your hammer, is it?" Old Marshy quails, his one jot of boldness used up. "Bah, but Cap'n, they're holy men, I don't think." Scarvench tastes his own blood on his lip and savors it with his tongue. He gestures to a couple of the pirates, and old Marshy is seized and dragged up to the poop deck. "Lay his head on the rail there, lads," says Scarvench in a voice like honeyed venom. He raises the hammer. "You're right, Mr. Marsh, you don't think. That's the trouble with having nothing in your brain pan, see?" Far too late, you realize what Scarvench is going to do. You give a gasp and start down through the rigging. But even as you act, you know there is nothing you can do. The hammer smashes down. It sounds like a wine flask breaking. The ordinary seamen look away in horror. The pirates grin gleefully like their captain, excited by the grisly sight. The corpse slumps to the deck. "God curse you, Scarvench," you mutter under your breath as you reach the foot of the mast. "I'll see you dead for that." "You're not alone in wishing that," whispers a voice, "but I'd stow such talk unless you want your own skull under the hammer next." You look around to see 3 of the crew, Grimes, Oakley, and Blutz, men who, like you, were taken off plundered ships and forced to work for the pirates. "We've a plan," continues Grimes in a low voice. "If we stay aboard this devil ship, our days are surely numbered, so tonight we plan to jump ship. We're scheduled to take the evening watch. We'll lower the jolly boat with a few supplies, then strike out towards Port Lechond." You glare back up at the tall, stooped figure on the poop deck. He stamps to and fro, the brain-smeared hammer still in his hand, annoyed that the monks made their getaway while he was distracted by old Marshy. You'll make him pay for his crimes one day, but you know the moment is not yet right. You turn to Grimes and the others and give a swift nod. "I'm with you." Now turn to 1. 1. Bookmarked. You know that you will need supplies to have any chance of survival on the open sea. It means taking a big risk, since you will have to go right past the officers' cabins, but there is no help for it. While your comrades keep a nervous vigil, fearing discovery at any moment, you creep aft and descend below decks. The only light in the passage is the glow of an oil lamp shining from the half-open door of Scarvench's cabin. As you skulk forward through the shadows, you hear the voice of the pirate captain raised in typically drunken bluster. "What, my merry lads, is the easiest route to fortune, would you say? Why, piracy, Captain, you hear one of the men answer hurriedly. Aye, piracy. Right enough, roars Scarvanch. But what's the most profitable form of piracy? I'm asking you. Why, 'tis kidnap and ransom, that's what. There's no cargo takes up so little space, nor fetches so high a price as live human baggage, so long as you choose the right person. Even you daft lubbers must have heard how Tolliver Crimp earned himself 1,000 doubloons last summer when he ransomed the Viceroy's nephew. 1,000 doubloons, cry the pirates in unison. A spit in the ocean compared to what I've got planned. I'll be earning us a king's ransom, or a queen's ransom rather, if he wants to split hairs on it, when I capture the best prize of all. I'm talking about that pretty young Queen Titania of Glorianne, my hearties, who'll soon be sailing here on a tour of the colonies. You were just tiptoeing past the door, glad of Scarvanch's ranting as it kept you from being overheard. But this news roots you to the spot. Can Scarvanch really mean to set his sights so high? The kidnapping of a monarch is surely beyond the limits of even his voracious ambition. Everyone knows that Queen Titania is well guarded by her loyal admiral, Lord Calidore, whose naval tactics have sent many a foe to the sea's bottom. And no trickery or poison can prevail against her while she is protected by her wizardly counselor, Dr. Wilde. Scarvanch's plan seems impossible, and yet you have suffered enough harsh experience of the man aboard his ship to know that, although unmatched for cruelty and greed, he is nobody's fool. He must really think he has a chance of carrying off the queen. You glance across the passage to the sailmaster's cabin. No light shows under the door. The sailmaster must still be in the galley with most of the other pirates. Now is your chance to sneak into the empty cabin and gather a few items for your voyage, and God knows your comrades must be getting anxious for you to return. At any moment, one of the pirates might go up on deck, and your bid for freedom would be discovered. But Scarvanch is still boasting of his madcap scheme, and despite your best instincts, you feel compelled to eavesdrop further. If you stay where you are and listen to what Scarvanch says, turn to 20. If you look in the sailmaster's cabin for supplies, turn to 39. If you decide to hurry straight up on deck, turn to 172. There is a murmur of amazement from the pirates in Scarvanch's cabin. Then you hear a voice which you recognize as Kershaw, the Weasley quartermaster. But how, Captain? Them Glorians know the sea like as to porpoises. They'd blow us out of the water before we got within a league of the Queen's flagship. Crouching outside in the darkened passage, you nod to yourself. That's the question you'd have liked to ask. There is a pause. You picture Scarvanch giving one of his secretive smiles as he takes a pinch of snuff. Sure enough, there comes a satisfied sneeze, and then his crowing voice is heard again. Never you mind the details, mister. That's for your old captain to sort out, ain't it? Suffice it to say that there's a shipwright in Port Selinus who's being well paid for his work. But, Cap'n, you hear the ox-like first mate, poor buck, protesting. We've always stuck by all your plans, but this surely can't be feasible. Won't Queen Titania be heavily guarded? It'd be our one ship against a dozen. Precisely what you were thinking. If you want to wait and hear Scarvanch's reply, turn to 77. If you think it's time you rejoined your friends, turn to 172. If you risk 39. The sailmaster is the officer in charge of day-to-day navigation of the ship. His tiny cabin is strewn about with papers, compasses, books, and other maritime paraphernalia. A sound from the bunk directly by your shoulder makes you give a start of alarm. You thought the blasted cabin was empty. But just as you are lunging forward, the blanket is tossed aside and you have a clear view of the bunk's occupant. Not a sailor, but only the little monkey that serves as the ship's mascot. Mr. Chatter is what the crew call him. He squats on the bunk and watches as you search around the rest of the cabin. You have time to grab 2 items from the following: a toolkit, a book of charts, a crucifix, a lodestone, and the monkey. Record the 2 items you're taking among the possessions on your character sheet, then turn to 172. You have time to grab 2 items from the following: a toolkit, a book of charts, a crucifix, a lodestone, and the monkey. Record 172 bookmarked. The others are waiting for you on deck. In the slanting rays of the setting moon, you make out the furtive silhouettes of Grimes, tall and gaunt, Oakley, strong as a tar barrel, and fat little Blutz. They have the jolly boat swung out over the side. Stealthily, you lower it into the water, working in deep silence like 4 burglars intent on a night's business. From below wafts the sound of a hornpipe and snatches of revelry as the crew sing sea shanties in the galley. Climbing down to the jolly boat, you shove off from the side and row with muffled oars away from the brooding bulk of the beldame. The moon slips below the western horizon, leaving the night studded with stars. There is no wind, and the sea is as flat as a pane of glass. As the sounds of jollity fade into the distance, only the soft splash of your oars remains to disturb the eerie quiet. Consider the following points in turn. If you have either the seafaring skill or a book of charts, turn now to 381. If not, but you have the charm skill and an amulet, turn to 399. If you have none of the above, but you have the spell skill and a wand, turn to 416. Otherwise, turn to 289. 381. Your next goal is to reach civilization, and now you weigh up the advantages of each route. The direct westerly course to Port Leshond lies through stormy seas that might easily capsize a small boat like yours. Alternatively, diverting far south would take you into a region where the prevailing ocean currents flow westward, so you could be carried to Leshond faster than if you steered a direct course. The drawback is that your supplies might not last out. One solution to that problem would be to steer the middle course, island hopping as you head generally west towards Leshond. Then your only worry would be the risk of attack from hostile natives. Now, if you have charms and an amulet, turn to 399. If you do not have charms but you have spells and a wand, turn to 416. If you have neither, turn to 289. 289. In the glimmering pre-dawn, as your little boat drifts gently on across the still ocean, you have your first chance to take stock of the situation. You must judge every factor with great care from now on. Even the smallest mistake could spell disaster, and you will need every scrap of luck and cleverness if you are to make it to civilized lands alive. First, your companions on the voyage. Grimes, lanky and lantern-jawed, is a lugubrious fellow. But despite his habit of expecting the worst, he is a good man to have aboard, being neither timid nor quarrelsome. Oakley is tough and smart but abrasive, a possible challenge to your leadership if you fail to assert yourself. All the same, you have been in enough tough scrapes together in the past to know that you can count on him too. Blutz is the weak link of the group, a timid, clumsy little scuttlebutt of a man. But you know that he can be clever and resourceful when he has to be. The 3 of them look at you, and Oakley says, "Well, where shall we point our prow?" Look at the map. Port Leshond is your obvious destination. If you decide to steer straight for it, heading due west, turn to 2. If you prefer to steer a course through the Smoking Islands, turn to 21. If you elect to steer 21. Having sailed these waters often as an honest merchant before he was press-ganged into service on the Beldame, Oakley relates what he knows of the islands. Pendanus Island, the westernmost in the chain, has often been visited by ships, he says. The natives there are friendly enough. The next, known as Grimoire Island, is a mystery, except I've heard the natives shun it out of fear for a hellish demon that lives there. Foolishness, of course. Next in the chain is Fire Peak Island, which gets its name from the immense cone of a smoldering volcano that dominates its hinterland. I never met a man who went ashore there. But what about the easternmost island? Asks Blutz. That's the first one we'll come to. Oakley shrugs. 97. Taking turns at the oars, you row westwards under the glare of a fierce sun. Soon your lips are parched, your necks blistered red in the heat. Everyone's spirits were at first buoyed up by the relief you felt at escaping from Scaramouche's grasp. But soon you begin to wilt with the awful gnawing of discouragement and doubt. "97. Taking turns at the oars, you row westwards under the glare of a fierce sun. Will you survive long enough to reach land, or will the little jolly boat become your floating coffin? Lose 1 life point owing to thirst, fatigue, and heat stroke. Exception: if you have wilderness lore, lose no life points because you know to protect yourself from the heat by soaking your clothes in the water. You have 9 life points. Around noon of the second day, you catch sight of Red Skull Island. Well, mutters Grimes through thirst-blackened lips. Do we risk going ashore? There might be fresh water and food. Aye, says Oakley. And it's us that might be the food if there are cannibals in these parts. They look to you to make the final decision. If you go ashore, turn to 173. If you sail on towards the next island, turn to 116. 173. Bookmarked. You beach the jolly boat on a narrow strand of fine white sand backed by high cliffs. At the top of the cliffs you can clearly see the tall green boles of coconut trees. We're saved, cries Blutz, dancing an absurd little jig. We can eat those coconuts, and even drink the milk if we can't find fresh water. But there's a problem, says Grimes, surveying the steep cliffs with a dour gaze. Who's going to climb up there and get them? You, Mr. Blutz? You have encountered a new story moment, Red Skull Island. If you have agility and wish to climb the cliffs alone, turn to 192. If not, you can make your way along the beach in search of a way up, turn to 211, or try looking for food here on the beach, turn to 230. Alternatively, you could put to sea and continue west towards the next island, in which case turn to 116. "230. You find only a couple of small crabs, which between them amount to barely more than a mouthful. Blutz gazes at them hungrily, flabby jowls sagging in dismay. Not worth dividing them up, he groans. Who's going to be the lucky one, then? As usual, the others instinctively look to you for leadership. Your own stomach is growling as much as anyone's. If you award yourself the crabs, turn to 268. If you let one of the others have them, turn to 287. 268. Your companions look on with sour sidelong glances as you hungrily devour the crabs. You stare back at them defiantly until they turn away. After all, didn't they leave the decision to you? As leader, you must try to keep your strength up. If currently below your initial life point score, you can restore 1 life point. You have 10 life points. Now you must decide if it is time to continue on your way, turn to 116, or whether it is worth exploring more of the island, turn to 211. 211. Some distance along the shore, you find a ladder of knotted vines dangling down from the cliff top. Looks like there are natives, observes Oakley unnecessarily. Perhaps we'd be wiser to go back to the boat and shove off. Your experience has been that not all islanders are hostile. It usually depends on the way they have been treated by the outsiders they've met. On the other hand, there are some who are unabashed cannibals and will attack with provocation if they see the chance of an easy meal. If you decide to climb the vines, turn to 249. If you return to the jolly boat and continue on your 249. Reaching the top of the cliffs, you stand atop a spar of rock, which gives you a clear view of the interior of the island. Lush jungle clings to the flanks of a sharply peaked mountain in the center. The summit of the mountain is hidden by a haze of cloud. Nearer at hand, you spy succulent fruits. From beyond the curtain of foliage comes the gurgling of a brook. If you have not already collected provisions and wish to do so now, turn to 306. If you want to explore the interior of the island, turn to 325. If you decide to return to the boat and resume your 306. You need to venture only a little way into the jungle to collect armfuls of fruit and nuts. You also drink from a freshwater stream until your bellies are stretched like topgallants in a high wind. Phew, says Oakley, rolling back on the grass. That was the sweetest drop I ever tasted, mates. But now I reckon we ought to be getting on our way. Note that you have 3 meals worth of provisions for yourself. Record these among the possessions on your character sheet, each as a separate item. Whenever you are told you need to consume provisions, cross off one of the meals. Turn to 344. You return to the cliffs to find a dozen islanders standing at the top of the vine ladder. They wear grass skirts and each has a red skull-like mask painted across his face. That's how the island got its name, mutters Oakley out of the corner of his mouth. Maybe so, whispers Grimes. Or maybe they're headhunters. You approach cautiously, uncertain of the islanders' intentions. They watch you in silence, and then one of them bares his lips in a ferocious grin. Blutz gives a small moan and goes weak at the knees, and you have to catch his arm to give him support. To your horror, the islander's front teeth are filed to sharp points. If you try to fight your way past them, turn to 363. If you offer them gifts, turn to 382. If you ignore them and just start to descend the ladder, turn to 400. (363). If you want to employ swordplay and a sword, or brawling, turn to 296. If you have marksmanship and a pistol and want to use it, turn to 270. If you have none of those skills, turn to 3. (270). Drawing your pistol, you shoot one of the natives dead just as he is raising his spear to thrust at you. The loud bang startles the other natives. They rush back a few paces, screeching in astonishment. When they see blood spreading from the corpse of the native you shot, they start to make a weird moaning sound and tremble with fright. It seems they've never seen firearms before, grunts Oakley. Trouble is, you just used your one shot. They don't know that, do they? You reply. Come on, everyone. Let's get down to the beach. Don't rush unduly, but don't dawdle either. Note the code word fetish on your character sheet and turn to 400. 400. The natives watch in unfathomable silence while you smartly descend the ladder of knotted vines. Apparently they are not ready to launch any assault as yet, since no boulders or spears come hurtling down at you from above. Then you see another group of natives striding along the beach towards you. These are also daubed in blood-red war paint and carry spears and clubs studded with splinters of volcanic rock. There are far too many of them for you to have any hope of fighting your way past to the boat. As they draw nearer, they begin to utter a low chant which is full of ominous intent. "Cannibals, or my bones are bleached wood," mutters Grimes. They mean to stuff us in their cookpot. If you have the code word fetish, delete it and turn to 22. If you don't have that code word, decide whether to offer them a gift, turn to 117. Use cunning, turn to 79. Use spells and a wand, turn to 60. Or just make a dash for the boat, turn to 41. (22) Overawed by what they have witnessed of your power, the cannibals are afraid to attack. Instead, they come forward and drop to their knees, bowing to you as though in heathen prayer. "Blow me," says Oakley. They think you're some kind-o demigod mate. It seems they do. Milking the situation for all it's worth, you raise your voice to an angry shout and rail at the cannibals, cursing them for daring to try and harm you. Although they cannot understand your words, the meaning is clear enough. Quailing, they scurry off and return with gifts, strewing these before you on the sand in hopes of assuaging your wrath. You are offered a feather shield, an obsidian necklace, and a shark's tooth sword, which is a blade of hard wood studded with shark's teeth that serves as well as any steel sword. Take whatever you want, remembering to record them among the possessions on your character sheet, and then turn to 98. You are offered a feather shield, an obsidian necklace, and a shark's tooth sword, which is a blade of hard wood studded with shark's teeth that serves as well as any steel sword. Take whatever you want, remembering to record them among the possessions on your character sheet, and then turn to 98. You have 8 possessions. You need to drop something if you want to make room. (98) The chief of the islanders arrives. He is a very big man, adorned in feathers and glass trinkets, with a weathered gray face like a carving in driftwood. Dipping his finger in a coconut shell dish carried by an attendant, he proceeds to draw a design on your face in red dye. "It's just like the war paint of these natives," says Grimes, looking at you. "I wonder what that means." "Maybe he's inviting me to join the tribe," you say with a wry smile. Next, the tribal shaman comes forward and draws a picture in the sand with his long, bony fingers. It shows a woman with a scorpion crown. He spits on the picture, then lifts his ceremonial scepter and points westwards. The chief says something which sounds like "Matya Ijadaniyu," and each of the islanders in turn nods and repeats the words before stamping on the picture. Before long, the image is completely lost in the scuffed sand. "A curious little ritual," remarks Oakley. "Now, Why don't we shove off, mates, before we outstay our welcome? You have to agree. Clambering into the boat, you row off, watched by the horde of silent islanders. You're not going to leave that war paint on your face, are you? Oakley asks when you are well clear of the shore. It makes you look like a ruddy heathen. You could wash off the dye before it dries. If you decide to leave it, note the code word script on your character sheet. Having done that, turn to 116. Another day passes, and your voyage becomes an increasing ordeal as heat and fatigue take their toll. The sea sits all about you like a gleaming leaden plate. The sun turns the sky into a furnace of white haze. By night, you shiver under the uncaring gaze of a million stars. If you have any provisions, cross one off your character sheet and turn to 426. If you have none, turn to 155. 426, bookmarked. The second of the 4 islands comes in sight. A verdant, jungle-clad shoreline dominated by the immense hump of a smoldering volcano. High up on the volcano's slopes, you can see the dull red gleam of lava. Gray sulphurous smoke sits in a wreath around the cone. "We be foolhardy to put ashore here," maintains Blutz. "That volcano could erupt and bury us all." You have encountered a new story moment, Fire Peak Island. If you have wilderness lore, turn to 193. If not, decide if you will land, turn to 174, or continue going west, turn to 135. "135. Your tiny boat heads onward. By day you are seared by the sun. By night you are racked with chill. Salt spray chafes the sores on your skin, and the need to bail water constantly gives you no rest. Another 2 days crawl by, and you gradually give way to fever and exhaustion. Lose 1 life point. You have 9 life points. If you have any provisions, cross one of them off and turn to 212. If you have a monkey and are heartless or desperate enough, you can count it as provisions. If you have nothing to eat, turn to 231. 212, bookmarked. Grimoire Island is a strangely idyllic-looking place with wide white beaches fringed by gently swaying palm trees. A balmy breeze blows refreshingly from the east. Birds the color of precious gems watch your approach without fear. It's eerie, decides Grimes. Almost too perfect. Like it's been tended, says Blutz. You know, like somebody's garden back home. A demon's garden, if the native stories are to be believed. Chips and Oakley. All 3, like you, are in a strange mood, both allured and uneasy. If you go ashore, turn to 118. If you row on towards the next island, turn to 137. 118. You drag your boat up the beach under the blandly incurious gaze of the paradise birds. Blutz gives an excited cry and points, saying, "Look, above the treetops. It's a tower. A ruddy marble tower, mates." He's right. In the declining golden light of the afternoon, you see a gleaming tower of polished stone. Since there are no creepers growing over it, the place is surely inhabited. But do you want to meet the inhabitant? If you have wilderness lore, turn to 213. Otherwise, you can head for the tower, turn to 194, gather food and water, turn to 232, or put 194. Despite the thick jungle, you reach the tower quickly by following a stone pathway that leads through the undergrowth. You emerge into a wide, grass-covered plaza, and facing you is a white marble palace with a high tower. You move cautiously closer, and Oakley runs his hand over the monumental carvings beside the entrance. They show a queen or priestess dispatching her enemies into luridly depicted hells. How was this stone brought here? Grimes wonders aloud. It's not local to the island, if I'm any judge. You're right, says a woman's voice. I brought it here by magic. Turn to 251. 251. She emerges from the shadows of the entrance, a stately figure with skin, the color of burnished oak, and hair like a shower of green stars. Her clothing and accent are not those of a Carib native, but seem to evoke the mysteries of an ancient civilization. I am Ijada, witch queen of this isle, she tells you. I demand tribute from all who come to my shores, but my demands are not excessive. All I'll take is the soul of one of you, to be sacrificed at dawn to my mother, the earth goddess. Send your own soul to hell, yells Oakley, snatching up a rock and dashing forward. Ijada calmly sweeps her arm, knocking Oakley to the ground as though he'd run into a tree branch. Return here in the hour before dawn, Ijada goes on. By then you must have decided which of you will give up his soul. Helping Oakley to his feet, you return to find the jolly boat sunk deep into the sand of the beach. You try digging it up, but it only sinks deeper. That's that, then, sobs Blutz. The witch's magic has trapped us here. We'll have to choose who's to die. If you have seafaring and want to make a raft, turn to 308. Alternatively, you can go to her at dawn as she told you to. Turn to 327, or try hiding from her. Turn to 346. 308. With the help of the others, you put together a makeshift raft, even rigging a rough sail from interwoven palm leaves. You have to work fast, knowing that you have only the space of a single night, and you are not sure the raft will hold together long enough for you to reach the next island. Unless you have charms and an amulet, in which case you can use magic to keep it seaworthy. Will you now put to sea on the raft? Turn to 137. Try hiding in the jungle? Turn to 346. 137. Swept onwards, your little craft starts to spring leaks. If you earlier used charms to keep it afloat, then there is no cause for alarm. Otherwise, note the code word detrude. Thirst, hunger, and a heat become your bitter foes. Petty quarrels break out as conditions worsen. Each man is nearing the end of his tether. Lose 1 life point. You have 8. If you have any provisions, cross 1 off and turn to 156. If you have none, turn to 175. 156. Bookmarked. The most westerly of the islands comes in sight. It is a large, golden-shored jungle island with many welcoming coves. Others have put in here when blown north off the main shipping route, Grimes recalls. The natives are said to be hospitable. You stare into the west. Leshond is still 200 leagues off, and it might be wise to reprovision before you undertake that long haul. And yet worry gnaws at your mind, hospitable when faced with gifts and muskets and a sea-going vessel of 10 cannon, perhaps. But how will they greet a handful of starving wretches in a ramshackle craft? It's up to you. You can put in here, turn to 154, or sail on towards Port Leshond, turn to 177. You have encountered a new story moment, Pandanus Island. 154. You row in towards the island, beaching your vessel on the deserted shore. Oakley gives a cry of delight as he spots a pineapple that has fallen from a tree at the top of the beach. Its juice stings his sun-cracked lips, but he chews ravenously at it all the same. Heads up, Grimes says tersely. We got company, shipmates. You turn your head. A large group of Carib natives have emerged from the woods and are coming across the sand towards you. "Welcoming party," you mutter under your breath, noticing the spears. If you have the code word script, turn at once to 253. Otherwise, you can attack, either with a pistol and marksmanship, turn to 196, or in hand-to-hand fighting, turn to 215. Or you might prefer to parley, turn to 253. The islanders stare in horror at the red death's head daubed across your face. Several of them step forward with raised spears, angry defiance, slowly replacing their initial shock. It is Grimes who realizes the cause. Those other natives must be their enemies, and they think you're one of them. If you have marksmanship and a pistol and want to shoot your way out of this, turn to 196. If you try fighting your way through them back to the water, turn to 215. If you want to resort to cunning, turn to 234. If you try wiping off the red die, 234. "Quick," you say to Oakley over your shoulder. "Push me over and make like you're giving me a kick. And make it look convincing." He is taken aback at first, but then he catches on to your plan. As you feel him shove you from behind, you fling yourself down to sprawl in the sand. "Ouch," you grunt as you feel the toe of his boot. "Not that convincing." "We've caught this scurvy wretch," Oakley tells the natives with the help of sign language. The chief must have learned a few words off sailors who stopped here. "Kill," he says. "Burn alive over fire." Oakley hesitates. "Tell him you're taking me to Port Leshend, you clot," you prompt him hurriedly under your breath. "Oh yes, the prisoner will be taken to Queen Titania, the, chief of Glorian. Get it? She'll decide the proper punishment." The natives are still keen to seize you, but Oakley keeps them off with warnings of dire reprisals if Queen Titania's wishes are not carried out. 272. The natives bring you baked root bread, fruit, and gourds full of fresh water. You can take enough provisions for 2 meals. Note these as possessions on your character sheet, and cross one off whenever you are told you need provisions. They also take a look at your battered craft and help to patch up any damage, demonstrating amazing skill with no tools other than bamboo and woven leaves. If you have the code words detrude or peccant, delete them. With the help of sign language, the chief explains to you that not many ocean-going vessels visit this island. If you were to stay here, you might be marooned for months. On the other hand, he offers to escort you southwards to the main shipping lane, where you might meet up with a ship bound for civilization. You soon realize that this would not be a free service, however. He expects a gift of some kind. If you give the chief a gift in return for being escorted south, turn to 310. If you'd rather head on towards Leshond without his help, turn to 177. Or you could stay on the island and wait for rescue, in which case turn to 329 if you have a book of charts, or to 348 if you do not. 329. If you have the code word Prospero, delete it now and turn to 348. 30. You've been on the island just a week, living in a lean-to on the beach. If you have fewer life points than you began the adventure with, regain one now. One morning, Blutz comes chasing up the beach, waving his arms and shouting for all he's worth. Grimes, sprawled on the sand in the shade of a palm, puffs his pipe and remarks, "It's a rare occurrence that stirs our Blutz to move faster than a trot. What's up, do you think, lads?" You smile. Perhaps the sun has gone in front of a cloud? Or a fish caught a seagull? Or he found a pearl inside a coconut? Chuckles Oakley. But your smiles vanish when Blutz reaches you and blurts out his news. The Beldame's just coming around the headland. She'll be dropping anchor in the bay, and here's us like 4 turkeys at Yuletide. If you run off to hide in the interior of the island until Scarvench departs, turn to 49. If you first bribe the natives to say that you're not here, turn to 68. If you go boldly down to confront Scarvench when he comes ashore, turn to 87. Scarvench's face twists into a broad smile as he sees you striding along the foreshore towards him. But it is a smile to make your blood run with ice, the smile on a wolf's face before it seizes its prey. "Oh, so you blokes have fared well," he thunders. "Still hale and hearty, I see, and glad I am to see it, for I wanted to savor your deaths myself. Just knowing you'd been drowned would have left me inconsolable like. If you want to fight him here and now, turn to 182. If you have a Thundercloud fan and want to use it, turn to 315. If you have a bat-shaped talisman and want to use it, turn 182. Scarvench and his men are not the sort to be taken unawares. With savagery shining from their eager faces, they close to surround you. The clash of steel and the sharp crack of musket shots ring out, startling the constant jungle murmur into silence. Gunpowder smoke and the abattoir stink of blood clog your nostrils. You are heavily outnumbered, and the struggle grows ever more desperate. If you have both swordplay and marksmanship, and a sword and pistol, there is at least a chance of victory. Lose 5 life points. 220. The natives scatter, filled with fear as the battle rages up and down the beach beside their village. Men's lifeblood spurts into the sand. Lusty battle cries are replaced now by ragged gasps and terse grunts of pain as each blow takes its toll. You are face to face with Scarvench, locked in mortal combat. His breath is a putrid gust in your face. Both of you bear a dozen wounds. Your blood runs down to mingle in the gore-soaked sand underfoot. "I'm sending you to hell," he snarls through gritted teeth. His cutlass stabs up, and you feel it grate through your ribs as you are impaled. "Then we'll go there together," you cry, responding with a killing blow which he fails to see until it is too late. The pair of you sag to your knees, locked in a final embrace like old friends. And you are filled with a fierce exultation as, even while your own life ebbs away, you see the face of your foe go stiff and white in death. Your bid for glory ends here. You have encountered a new story moment, the end of your adventure. The pair of you sag to your knees, locked in a final embrace like old friends. And you are filled with a fierce exultation as, even while your own life ebbs away, you see the face of your foe go stiff and white in death. Your bid for glory ends here. You have